Om. Hello. Here
Hello.
we are. It's Sunday.
Yes, for most of us, probably.
For most of us. And I have with me a Rojo and a Nilesh.
Well, Nilesh is there. Wonderful.
He's here.
Where did he hail from today?
Hotlanta, GA.
Nice. Welcome to the ashram.
Thank you.
I can turn this around maybe and give you a shot of him. Hi, Anika. Hi, Raj. Now, this doesn't turn perfectly, so I can't see what you're looking at.
Yeah, facing my face.
Always nice to see someone pop out of the computer.
And there's a Rojo.
Hi, Ro.
And here's a me.
This will be the last Sunday, Swamiji, that I'll be joining you from abroad for a while. For this year. Next week, I'll be occupied holding baby and meeting new little girl of one of the inductees. And so I won't be
Oh,
on.
that's right. Yeah.
And next week I'll be there. So.
Yes, I knew that. Hi, Teria. Hello. And of course, there's Nellie, but Nellie's a little bit late today. She did not get number 1 slot.
She so graciously allowed others to have it today.
Anyway, so I said Om is the essence of all sadhanas.
Now, are we only going to say that we have a course and then we're done? Because we basically put everything.
No, we do have a course on Om Mantra, and it really, really is very good, of course. Oh, yeah, well, Johnny is as fresh as always. He's got hello.
That is cute. This gives shalom a different meaning.
Something like that. And Nellie says, oops, for being late. But for Nellie, being late means right on time.
Of course.
Anyways. I don't have an exact itinerary or agenda of this, so whoever's here, use this and throw in some comments there and help keep Matri and I going live here. And you better.
I better.
Oops, wait a minute. Everything's frozen here.
Oh.
Sound is there, but everything else is frozen. I cannot use the buttons on the screen.
Oh my. Let me see what happens.
I'm gonna try to refresh this and see what happens. No, now that's come back. And so
good.
Okay, it has come back. Boy, that was strange.
Hi, Rosalind. I hope your recovery is going smooth. I know it's very fresh and takes a long time. So.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. When was that? A couple days ago.
Not more than that. Maybe even day before yesterday or something.
Anyway, so I don't have an exact thing to go with this, but I can tell you that the spirit of my reflection on this is sort of acknowledging that it is so easy to accidentally take this question of Om and it just gets relegated to being just some mantra that we remember from time to time, whether we're doing japa, and I keep saying, find the silence after the Om and that kind of thing. But it really, really is something that is involved in every aspect of sadhana.
I have a little story to tell that I can share.
she's in the hospital right now, out tomorrow. Let me give an example here, and then I'll be quiet and you can tell your example, if that's okay.
Okay.
Let's say, for example, that you are in a modern yoga studio and you are in a yoga class that is actually an asana class. How does Om fit there? Well, from time to time, a so-called yoga teacher will start their yoga class and say, let's all chant an Om out loud together. And we all sit there and go, Om. And at the end of an hour or an hour and a half of doing difficult physical postures, the so-called teacher will say, and now let us end our class with Om. And everybody in the class goes out loud, Om, together. And what happens in that way, I'm sorry to say it, so I guess it sounds not nice, but the subtler meaning of Om gets completely ignored while you are doing those teacher-guided postures in the so-called yoga class.
No, even that asanas are done with bija mantras.
Yeah. Anyway, note that Patanjali, when Patanjali talks about Om in the Yoga Sutras, one of the things he says is that it should be done by remembering its meaning. It does not just mean parroting an Om out loud. It has a meaning to it. And this, I think, is part of what prompted me to think about wanting to talk about this a little today. I know I don't have a solution to this. For years, I've tried to figure out a way around this. But we created that Om mantra course, and from my side, in the hopes of being able to communicate how to live and practice this. And hello, Kelly. Digital repetition versus analog remembrance of all the time. Okay, yeah, that's part of it, I guess. But we keep talking about, I'm going to hold this up just for a moment. I don't want to get too much into this, that this is the this is the O, this is the There's the Om, and there's the silence after the Om. But when we are in that asana class, is it not true that when you go into that posture, you're going to go into this posture, that there is a pure consciousness back here that is operating outward through an identity called me, or called personality, or called Rosalind, or called Betty, or called Hybe, or called Kelly, or called Raj. There is somebody back here that is consciousness operating outward through a personality and through a physical body so that I can bend in this particular kind of way. Question: are we remembering those levels of consciousness? Are we cultivating the fact that the silence after the Om is the Atman? Are we attempting to remember that I am Atman, I am pure consciousness, I am Shiva, I am Shakti, and I am animating outward through an unconscious process to move this physical body so that I can be in this posture? Do we actively do that, or does that get overlooked and the Om gets relegated to a mere group chant at the beginning and the end, and doing nothing about living the meaning of the mantra? And I think it's obvious that the way I'm saying that, I'm suggesting the idea that more often than not, we are completely ignoring those levels of consciousness. The idea Patanjali says is be aware of the meaning of the mantra. The Mandukya Upanishad is only 12 verses. We've been through a couple different Swami Rama books attempting to describe the meaning of those levels of consciousness. Once we go through those couple books describing and go through the course we created on the meaning of the levels of consciousness, the idea is then we do what Patanjali calls, we talked about it in 2 of our meetings yesterday, Svadhyaya. Tapas Svadhyaya is Svara Pranadhana Kriya Yoga. Svadhyaya means inspection within. It means exploring our inner state. And one of the best roadmaps that we have for that is the levels of consciousness mapped out by the Om. And in the gross level, it's manas, chitta, ahankara, and buddhi, and the indriyas. And are we aware of those while we are doing life? Am I aware of my indriyas right now as I'm talking to you? Am I aware that there is an unconscious mental process going on that forms the words, that is coming from my intentionality that is behind that then that unconscious mind forms the words and it comes out of my mouth so that you can hear it? And am I aware that there is an Atman back behind there? There is a consciousness operating all of that. Am I aware of that? And my answer to you is yes, I am aware of that. It's a practice of being aware of these levels all the time, right in the middle of an asana class, a so-called yoga class, where more often than not, this very heart of yoga is ignored. If all we do in the asana class is start with a chanted Om and end with a chanted Om, all we are doing is hypnotizing ourselves. We are simply getting ourselves into a trance on a sound. Nothing wrong with going into a hallucinated trance if that's what we want to do, but that's not remembering the meaning of what it represents. Okay. Hi, Barry. Oh, my favorite syllable of meditation. And I would invite you to consider when you say the phrase, my favorite syllable of meditation, who the hell is the me that is saying that this is my favorite syllable? That's the key. Who is it that is saying that Om is my favorite syllable? There's a somebody there who is forming that sentence, that phrase, my favorite syllable. And the meaning of that word my is to be found by understanding the meaning of the syllable Om. It's not merely saying, I like this Om. Anyway, I'm always attempting to, says Rosalind. Yes, bad at the definitions, but sometimes I get emotional and I am not as in touch. And not picking on you, Rosalind, but I am not as in touch. It sounds, I get emotional and I am not in touch. I am always attempting. I am attempting to be aware of the Om. Again, who is the I who is attempting, and who is the I who gets emotional, and who is the I who is not as in touch? The awareness of the Om is the awareness that I am about to use the word I in a sentence, and oops, there I go again. Good. Thank you. Got it. There's a difference, isn't there, Roz? There's a difference. And I sincerely, I think I know the answer to this, but I have to phrase it like this. I sincerely hope that it really, really is true when you just type the two words, got it. I think I know the answer to that. I think you do. I think you did get it. I think that drove home for you and hit home for you. And who is the you for whom it hit home? That's the Antakarna. That's the false identity called Roz, who is being aware of sitting there in a hospital room, and that it's a body that's in a hospital room, and it's a personality in a hospital room, and all of that kind of stuff. But I am back here. I am Atman, and I am prior to all of these definitions of Rosalind. Whether it's Rosalind as I, the personality, or Rosalind the I think it's a knee that they worked on, I think it was a knee that they did you on. And so they may say, how's your knee feeling? And you say, well, my knee hurts. But the yogi Rosalind, if you got it, when that person asks you that, internally you're going to be laughing. Somebody inside is laughing that says, you foolish nurse. You foolish nurse, you don't get it. I am not my knee. I am not my knee that you people just did surgery on. And then she says, nurse says, Ms. Savage, why are you laughing? Why are you laughing? And can't figure it out. They think maybe you're crazy. And you say, well, you know what? I actually am crazy. And you internally know that I'm crazy sentence means I'm crazy because I have knowledge. I've fallen asleep into this silly idea that I am a person called Rosalind and that I have a thing called a knee. And this is hilarious because internally I am aware that I am this consciousness that's operating out through a personality and through a body and through a knee. Indeed. Yes, you bet you. Indeed. Thank you, Roz, for letting me play with you in that kind of way. That's the spirit of it. Okay, now, Ma, I'm going to shut up a minute. You can tell your story.
When I saw the topic, what reminded me is the way that when I met you, which is almost 9 years ago now, is that within those first few days, you kind of painted the whole, you did paint the whole picture. And right from the beginning, as we've met, that was always up front. You said you read the last page first, but basically we're always reading the last. And of course we fill in the first pages, but we never forget about the last page. This is how the book is going to end of yoga, so to speak.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe tell them what we're talking about with the last page of the book first.
So that the whole process is explained, and nothing is left behind in the sense of where it is always going. It's as of, setting aside all the false identity, which includes all the eyes and the body and the mind and all the the memory traces and the habit patterns, and what is left is yoga or the silence after Om, and every, we play like, oh, he goes again with Om Tat Sat, but there's a constant focus that has been there from the moment that I've met you on what it is for. So we don't get dwindling and meandering with all the details that can be, there can be so many details that we can get lost in. It's always bringing us back. And this question mark, this map, this diagram is like the roadmap that brings everything back to it. And later on, as we dove into, I think the first time we actually dove, for me personally, into the Mandukya Upanishad, basically said, this is what we've been talking all along, and I can imagine that you can waste a lot of time, or you can spend a lot of time, let me not color that, with studying all the details, and then get to the Mandukya Upanishad and then say, wow, it's all summarized. The Om is a summary of everything we've done so far. And I've, since the moment I've met you, you always flipped it around.
Oops.
It's not unique. I know it's unique. You froze.
You froze.
Oh, did my sound get lost too?
For a moment, but now I think we're back together.
And so the essence of Om and everything that you do, it always comes back to this. And so I've always appreciated that from the moment that I've met you, that there's no walking around the bush or whatever you call that.
Yeah.
And so
the spirit of what she's saying about the last page of the book, I made this observation many, many years ago of a habit of myself as me as a person. And I always, if I pick up a book, any book, I always want to look at the last page of the book. I like to know how the book is going to end. If it's a storyline book, I like to know, is the hero going to live or die at the end of the movie? I like
romantic comedy, they always come together.
Yeah, and so it's a good comedy, good romantic comedy, where you have this myth that they're always going to come and live happily ever after. Yes. Anyway, that's the spirit of it, is I like to look at the end of the chapter, at the end of the book. And then as an extension of that, I have observed that the people that I meet in life in the context of yoga, who I most enjoy, are the people who also like to read the last page of a book. And I've said that from time to time, like in a satsang or in a retreat setting. And I've had some people say, but I don't like to look at the last page of the book. I like to have surprises. And I have also noticed that the people who don't like to look at the last page of the book mostly seem to be those who don't understand what yoga is about and just want to keep learning more and more techniques. And so why am I learning these techniques? It doesn't know. I don't know. It's just a hobby. I have a hobby of going to workshops. I have a hobby of going to meditation retreats.
Collecting gurus.
I have a hobby, Rojo just said, I have a hobby of collecting gurus. I want a guru, somebody says. I ask them why. Why do you want a guru? What do you think a guru is going to do for you? And well, it's just one of the chapters of the book.
And for those who are hungry for that, however that is named or called or pointed at, that, there's no time to waste. And
there's the last page of the book.
There's the last page.
There are 2 ways, the Mantra just said, there are 2 ways in which somebody can say, I don't have time. Someone says, I'm too busy in life. I have a job, I have a family, I have this, I have that, I have all this stuff going on. I don't have time. That's one way of saying I don't have time. The other way of saying exactly the same words is when one has some sense of what the last page of the book is about and says, oh my, I don't have time to waste. Yes. I cannot wait until I'm old and retired and have a big bank account. I cannot wait. Life is short and there's much for me to awaken to. And so I must do this now.
How else could I have this understanding within just a few days of meeting you that this is it? And
let's pick up a couple of these comments back here.
What is said?
Terry said, what's a better way to say me? The sadhaka striving constantly remember the self without using words me and I. Just asking might be a nifty practice. So the thing you're touching on, Terry, is built into our language. Built into our language, we naturally use the word I and me. listen to the way Matri just described to all of you what she has heard me be doing with her for 9 years. She was hearing me talk from someplace other than me and other than I. She was doing that, and I think you heard it. But that does not mean that I don't use the word I. I just used the word I several times in the last couple sentences. It's convenient. But if you're talking to another yogi, that understands this process that we're talking about and who is actually living the awareness of these levels of consciousness that are mapped out by Om, you will know that person very easily and well enough to know which way in which they are saying that. What I just did, what the Rosalind conversation we just had back and forth a little bit there, and she said, got it. And then you heard me say to her, I think I heard you right, that you got it. And so this is a conversation where I think that what I was saying was being heard by Rosalind. And so she still has to talk about me being in the hospital after a surgery. We have to use the language. There's no escaping that.
Yeah, I was once in the retreat. We all spoke in third person. It's really annoying.
It's annoying, yeah.
Because it sounds, it's a gimmick because you can do that, and but it's about the awareness.
For example, Ma, give example, please.
Matri worked in the garden today, and she had to go out of the garden because it started to rain. So then she came back in, and Matri made some chocolate snack.
Yeah, you hear what she's saying? That's Matri speaking from third person, so she does not use the word I and me. And notice how unreal, how phony it sounds. Something sounds wrong with it. So there's nothing wrong with Matri. If I've been hanging around Matri and I know her well and I know where she's coming from, she told me a little while ago that she had been out doing the lawn or whatever it was. And I knew exactly what she meant. And I also know her well enough to know that she has a reasonable degree of awareness that I am not a Matri. And I am not a gardener.
No. But if I would drag it though, as I am living in awareness that I am that which is beyond body, breath, and mind, and I observed how the body used the karmendriyas to work in the garden so it could play in this amazing story of the 5 elements, that sounds a little long.
Sounds a little long and it sounds unreal.
Yeah.
But there's something happen. When in saying this that we're talking about right now, I'm trying to appeal to your buddhi, to your intelligence that does understand what we're trying to say. That we have the intelligence, we can hear where another person is coming from in a conversation.
Yeah, because if everyone would constantly repeat the question, when I would say I am blah blah blah, or I was, and someone who is not you, if I just be honest, would constantly repeat, oh, who is that I? Who is that I? Just constantly, trying to show off that, like you are in a video again. I would also get upset. I would get angry because of unfulfilled desire. I think. But you, as we are here to learn, think that does it very carefully and very respectfully to the false identity that we're trying to break through. It can be a gimmick again. As soon as someone says I, you say, who is the I? Who is the us?
We use our intelligence to be aware of these levels of consciousness, and then we use our intelligence when we're communicating with another person. If I'm just off in a store somewhere and have just a trivial little conversation with a person, I think that most of the time I pretty well see that person is not being aware of Atman.
They have a do not disturb sign sometimes.
Yeah, the one time I've heard it said, I don't remember if Swami Rama said it, but imagine it has, this comment has relevance here in what we're doing in the world. Imagine that a person has a sign on their forehead that says "Do not disturb," and there's actually a comment in the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna is giving advice to Arjuna that says, it's in chapter 3, I think, that says. It says, "Do not disturb the little knowing ones."
Yeah, the dull-witted little knowing ones. Those are confused by
the words are pretty strong. The words are very strongly stated there, but there's a gentle spirit in it that we can hold in there. And so when we're out in the public place, don't throw it up at people. Look what religious people sometimes do when they're trying to convert you to their religion. I had somebody email me. I didn't even know. He messaged me not too long ago and said straight out to me one simple question: is Jesus your Savior? There was no attempt to have a conversation. It was sort of, there's a certain tone in a comment like that that's not inviting.
It's about a constant awareness, and as much as there you.
So this is the spirit of what I'm attempting to talk about with the Om, is of us we're not talking about how to correct language. But when I'm doing that, when we're having this conversation, I acknowledge that the conversation here is a little lopsided because we have video cameras and audio, and you're typing into a box. And I understand that. That's why I try to be cautious in saying, I'm not trying to pick on like Rosalind. I'm trying to make a comment. And I know that she was hearing me when I said that. And so it's an awkward conversation. I'm sitting here, and if I'm reading correctly, I think Rojo is hearing what we're talking about. I think Nilesh is sitting over on the chair. He's looking at me. He's taking it in. If I'm reading his body language correctly and his facial expressions and the little smile on his face and his eyes, he's tracking what I'm saying, I think. Somebody in there is tracking what I'm saying.
Nice.
And so I admit that it's much easier to have this kind of conversation when you're face to face and you can fully engage one another. It's awkward to be able to do this like this. But I think, Terry, it's a wonderful observation question that you put there. How do we do it? And I hope this helped with that. I missed the context here of Raj saying beating around the bush, and then
I was using that expression, but I was not sure how to put the expression. I would say running around the bush or something, but it's beating around the bush.
Yeah, no, they were clarifying for you.
Yeah, they were clarifying. That was a while ago. Yeah. So no beating around the bush.
Terry is remembering that somewhere on my website I wrote something about the page. Web pages are both for those who like to read the last page of the book. And she read that one first. Good. I'd say I had forgotten that I put that on the website. I'm not at all surprised. And if I will have to go Google last page and see if I can find
Just in your own website search engine.
No, I've done that before, and I looked and I said, I don't know whoever wrote this website. It's not very organized. Raj said sadhana is somewhat like a rom-com where Shiva and Shakti unite at the end and live happily ever after.
Oh, that's so cute.
What is a rom-com?
Romantic comedy. It's a rom-com. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I never looked at it like that's why I like rom-com so much.
There's urgency, immediacy. Yeah. Om, no time. When time is there is a need to remember. Hello, Mitesh. Good. Okay, I guess we did okay with it. So I was thinking, Mom, maybe help out here. I was thinking of what are other circumstances, just to get it said. I use the example of being in a modern yoga studio. Where are some other places that we can cultivate being awareness, not meaning cultivating awareness of Om, 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 but the meaning of Om is the levels of consciousness, that I am Atman operating out through a personality that's mostly unconscious, and I am operating out here in the world.
The moment you wake up, the alarm goes, or you just wake up, it's a fascinating moment as you can observe gradually how you are gaining conscious out of the unconsciousness of deep sleep, which of course you were always conscious, because pure consciousness is never unconscious. But that moment, I think, is very fascinating as you can observe how you gradually, very quickly though, but there is some gradualness to it, pick up your personality where you left off the day before.
Yeah. And when you just said that, Matre, you reminded me that one of the things that she will say to me sometimes in the morning around here, after meditation time, and we're heading out to come in and start to have tea or breakfast, she'll look at me and say, welcome to Vaishvanara. And it's a simple acknowledgement that we're coming from somewhere interior. And when you get out of bed, we come back into Vaishvanara, this plane of reality that's symbolized by the Ah of Om. And so where were we? When we went to bed, we receded inward. We receded to the plane of reality called Tejasa, which is the dreaming state, or we receded inward to Prajna, where the samskaras are all in completely latent form. And it's a state that if we're looking from the outside, we would call that dreamless sleep. If you were to put a person on EEG, measuring their brain waves, you could watch the effect of the dreaming going on, and all of a sudden they stopped moving and fell asleep. I say you can watch a person doing this. If you watch a person, you can watch a dog doing this. You know, a person's laying there and they're moving a little bit, body's moving a little bit like this, and maybe the lips are moving ever so slightly like this, and then all of a sudden something like this happens. Everything sort of falls and completely motionless. And if you have a person on EEG at the time, you see the brain waves dip down very, very, very slow. It's deep sleep. Plane of reality known as prajna.
So if you just know a little bit about what Om, even if it's just a theory that it's 4 levels of consciousness and they're waking, dreaming, deep sleep, and beyond, then those transition moments from one to the other are amazingly beautiful to observe, that you literally kind of feel you're leaving one space and receding back into, or moving back further out, entering another one, like in the morning.
Yeah. And so we all have that in the morning.
We all have it.
So the feet come out of the bed and go on the floor. Maybe we go to the toilet. Maybe we take a shower. Maybe we just throw on our clothes. And before you know it, we're out engaging in the world again.
Yeah.
And if we're not a yogi, we just get up and we go on about our affairs and we say, bye, have a good day. And out the door we go to go do whatever we're doing.
I'm laughing about making my oatmeal. It's just, I've been now here for a few weeks, and it's literally every day in this almost exactly the same order. And I'm just watching the whole habit pattern play out. And I have so much space in the meantime to be aware of which is behind, because it's such a automatic this, then this, then this ingredient. And it's a wonderful moment to just be aware of how easy and smooth it goes when there is a well-chosen, useful habit pattern of making a nice, healthy breakfast.
Yes, Terry, that's a good example, that Bindu article. When that came together, I was sitting in somebody's yoga studio and we were having a satsang on something. And suddenly the intuition flashed on me that the Bindu is a subject that can talk about the convergence of yoga, Vedanta, and Tantra, which people often see as separate. And coming off of that moment of insight, it was one burst of insight as I was sitting there. And coming off of that, we created a weekend workshop with something. This is a small town where we are, and we had something like 55 people show up and jam in this room over an entire weekend. It took me a month or two to put together the material to be able to do this presentation together, and we had a really nice time with it. And the idea of it was, hopefully by talking about Bindu, we could all see the last page of the book. And then after we did that workshop, I had put some notes together. It was only after we had done that workshop 2 separate times, that then I was able finally to write the article. And I think the article is something like 30, 35, maybe 40 pages.
It's a small book.
And so it's a good catch to remind me of that, Terry, but that's the principle there, yes. Raj says, gradually cultivate 24/7, even while dreaming and sleeping. And an important word that he said there is gradually. Well, the thing I'm trying to talk about today is not some immediate sort of shock value thing that instantly we're going to all go walking around all day chanting Om. It's not what I'm talking about. It is a gradual process where we start to be slowly aware. And it may be an increase in things like Matri was describing of what happens when you get out of bed in the morning. Maybe it just starts happening to you. And you realize, wow, I just shifted states of consciousness. And you go, wow, there really is something to this Om business. It's not just a hypnotic technique. It's not.
Another example that comes to mind, Swamiji, is when you try to remember something like someone's name and you know it, and you're just maybe even getting a little frustrated because it's just at the tip of your tongue, we say, which basically means it's like at the tip of the border between conscious and unconscious, active, unconscious, and active. And then when it jumps forward and you have it within your conscious mind field, I think it's a nice. We all are very familiar with that, and I think it's a nice way to really see that those levels of consciousness, as they are on that map, are really applicable to ourselves.
No, it's a very, very good example. And so we get to notice, oh, where did this just pop forward from the unconscious? Oh my, this is an example of the levels of consciousness of Om. And again, it's not walking around going Om, 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 Om to hypnotize ourselves. It's a perfect example, Ma. That's why I knew if I primed the pump here, you'd come up with some good ideas of examples of ways to do this.
I like it. We're a good team. You're a good.
Yeah, it's a good game.
Good. Priming the pump.
As an example of observing levels, type it in the box. We'll add to it.
Observe, yeah.
I think Nilesh and Roho are changing levels of consciousness. They're getting very quiet.
Well, pay attention, then it's okay. It's wonderful to move in and out of states when you're listening to.
I said that playfully, but it really, really is too. It's sometimes in a moment like this where there's a reflective conversation going on. It's very easy, is it not, to feel your attention come back inside. Guys, that worked with Nilesh. Nilesh, now he's sitting over there nodding at me. Yes, yes, yes. And so that's an example of the awareness of the levels that are in Om. And again, he's not sitting over there chanting Om.
No.
But it's like, oh, wow, this is what it's like to start to be aware of Tejasa sitting here in the chair. It's an awareness of the functioning of Tejasa, but it's not falling asleep. He didn't fall out of the chair onto the floor snoring.
Yeah.
But there's a little glimpse.
Traveling is really nice in planes where you're sort of locked up in this box and you can't really move. And so you're drifting in and out of all these states of consciousness, and it's a wonderful time to.
Yeah, and it makes the plane ride go much easier and smoother and quicker too, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm Because I probably thought about that because there's a long one coming up very soon.
Yeah, soon.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
No.
sometimes people will complain about how hard it is to take a plane ride like that, and frustration. But if we're yogis, we understand these levels, as Matri just said. You're sitting there and you're moving in and out of these levels of consciousness, and you know it, and you realize it. You still may be listening to some music or watching a movie or something like that, but you're aware of moving in and out, and that what's going on. You can feel the indriyas wanting to get up and get out of the plane and go take a walk or something, but you can't get up and leave the plane. So you're aware of the effect of the indriyas wanting to do something, but you can't do anything, so you go inside with the indriyas. But don't lose consciousness, or you do. Yeah.
I have to tell Swamiji, I don't have to say I think. I know the best asana class that I once had was from you, by the way. Besides all the ones that I facilitate, of course, those are amazing. But
well, say more about it so they can understand what
I was going to. So as we are moving into the known postures and moving in and out of them, and then they don't have to be complicated because it's done with awareness. But the one thing that you kept repeating over and over and over again, the whole time we went through the joints and glands or the whatever sequence of asanas, was its consciousness moving out as buddhi, as mana, and employing the senses and and moving the body. And so and you were just constantly repeating this, and not as a mantra like, oh, look, and they just really catch constantly our awareness. It's Atman, or pure consciousness, moving out as buddhi, as manas, as the senses, as a body. And that we can do in asanas. And I think if we do that during asanas, on top of the fact that it's useful for our physical body to remain strong and healthy, and it's good for our meditation seat and necessary to get a good meditation posture, that moment in which you do those asanas can be filled with so much rich awareness. And then you start to see, oh, now I'm drinking my tea asana.
Yes. Now I'm drinking my tea.
Now I'm answering my phone asana, right? You're just constantly moving. And the asanas of downward facing dog is no different than stepping out of your door to walk to your car with your cup of coffee in your hand.
Or doing your work.
Yes.
Nilesh is sitting here, I think in his mind, he's now sitting as his computer writing JavaScript.
Oh, yes. That's JavaScript asana writing. Right?
JavaScript asana.
Writing asana, yes. Which can be done with normal, quiet breath, with a nice upright, straight posture, when Atman is moving out as buddhi, as manas, using the indriyas, writing the JavaScript.
But I cannot do that.
Bullshit! Calling you on that. No,
what?
I said bullshit.
You're inspiring.
Yeah, I'm inspiring. He says I'm inspiring. Yes. But I don't know how to write JavaScript.
No,
I took a computer programming course, get ready for this, in the 1960s. 1960s, I took, it was in Fortran. Did you ever hear of Fortran? I don't know anything, but I just remember that was the name of it.
And it's so last century, Swamiji.
It was very, very, literally last century, and very far back, couple centuries back. And you're going to enjoy the humor of this. At the time, I think this is true. I think that the people who understood programming at that time, they were still behind those glass walls, There was no such thing. It was 30 years before the invention of the personal computer, and the computer geeks were behind the glass windows. And so I think that they were not skilled at all. I'll see if we can find a picture of that for those that have ever seen it. We should find an old computer picture like that and post a picture. It's unbelievable to think back at that. But those people who had the intelligence to understand this stuff, they were very not skilled at explaining it to students because they were not people. And they were not good at explaining. They were good at being behind the glass walls doing what they were doing.
Swamiji, your story instantly brings forward all the nerds, all the people really studied. I mean, I don't want to use nerds as a negative word, but both Matt and Govinda understand what you're talking about.
I want to finish the humor of this story. I think you'll enjoy the humor of the story. And we had to use those computer cards. You had to sit in front of a machine and type out cards. And what we would do is we had to write a program to do something like add up a series of numbers. And the simple person to me says, why don't we just use an adding machine and go push the numbers in? We can get but that was not the exercise. The exercise was to learn how to write the code to get this stupid machine to do something that is much easier to be done by hand. But they did not do a good job of explaining this whole concept. So I got I'm an intelligent person. As a person, I have a pretty good brain and a pretty good mind. It's pretty intelligent. But this thing was so ridiculous to me. It made no sense whatsoever why we're wasting our time punching cards to do some task that is much easier to do with an adding machine. That's it. Now remember, I remember.
Somebody's telling a joke. Now we have to laugh, or at least laugh.
Well, I didn't get with the punchline, but the sort of punchline was I failed the course.
Oh.
I mean, I just wasn't cut out for this.
You were not interested.
I think the instructor thought I was stupid, and I'm not stupid, but it just made no sense to me why we're doing this. Now, years later, I know how to use a computer, and yeah, listen to this. Scott knows even before that, it was holes punched in long strings of paper. Boy, talk about going back some time. I can remember a story that in the 1940s, there was a time where one bit of information was a glass vacuum tube. A vacuum tube about this big that was electricity, and it was one binary switch. And the simplest computer that there was filled a warehouse. And the president of IBM Corporation was asked in an interview, what do you think is the total number of the world market for computers? How many computers could be sold in the world if we had the ability to make more of them? This is the president of IBM in the 1940s said 5. 5 computers in the entire world. That's the maximum number there will ever be. But this was before the invention of the transistor. This was close to 20 years before the invention of the transistor. And that was 20 years before the invention of the microchip and whatever it's gone to now. Anyway, Johnny had intensive training in vacuum tubes while in the Navy. Yeah, that sounds very old school Navy. Here you go. Here, let's see if Nilesh gets impressed over this. Johnny says, started with JavaScript, but preferred Haskell for learning functional programming. He nodded at you sweetly. I have no idea how to read that look on his face. There seems to be, Johnny, some degree of understanding what you just said. I don't know if it was pity for your confusion or compassion or agreement. I have no idea.
Was one of those?
Huh?
Let's put that. No stuff.
He says, you know stuff. The fact that you're able to even say that means you know stuff. Ma, do you have any idea what they just said? She's shaking her head with an Indian head waggle. No, that means no. I know that head waggle means no. I don't have any idea what they're talking about.
Very well interpreted.
Yeah, I interpreted it anyway. So, and we're kind of losing track from Om.
Oh, but
So
you can joke and have fun.
But we can joke.
Being aware of Om. I saw, Jeff posted something. I think Jeff or Scott.
Scott. Before that, it was Holes Punch. Oh, Barry said, I missed Barry's comment. Fortran punch cards in order, 100 in the right place. Remember sitting typing cards. I have a vague memory of sitting there typing cards and just wanting to get out of there so I could go have a cold beer. That's what I remember of sitting there typing cards.
Yeah, I know Scott before that also had.
Okay, I'm getting there.
Yeah, I know you're getting there.
So being aware of my posture, my breath, and my thoughts and feelings, even during my work job, that will facilitate my practice, ? Yes, absolutely. And note here that when I'm saying about being aware of Om, being aware of your posture and your breath and your thoughts, in some sense, all of that is happening out here in Vaishvanara. And so what I'm inviting you to do is to be also aware in some way of where did the impetus from posture and for breath and thoughts, where did they arise from? I hope that's making sense, Scott. Where did they arise from? Well, these are happening out here in Vaishvanara, the level, and it's an inference. We're using your buddhi to do inference. I infer that it came from my active unconscious processing mind, the subtler part of the Om, symbolized by the U. And again, inferring that behind all of this and behind the identity called Scott, I am consciousness, I am Atman. Yeah, and yes, that will definitely facilitate the practice. Very, very much so.
Constant awareness.
And so you start, Scott, by being aware of posture while you're doing your work. Start by being aware of posture, start by being aware of breath, and start by being aware of the streams of thoughts that are coming up in the mind and out of the mouth. Start with those, but then allow that to lead you by inference to where they are arising from. And remember, try this on for sight. It is exactly the same process as getting out of bed in the morning. You get out of bed in the morning, you put your feet on the floor, and you say, okay, now I'm out here. I just came from some place. When you go to bed at night, I reverse the process. I go in and I fall asleep. And then I get up and I come outward. And so when you are being aware of posture, breath, and thoughts and feelings, that's on that surface out here level. And all I'm asking you to do is, yes, do those four things. Do them, do them, do them. They will definitely help with practice. And it will help you become aware of the indriyas and the manas that is behind the indriyas that's causing this to happen. And through that, you will infer an unconscious process going on, like inferring the microchip in the computer, and then inferring your way all the way back to the pure electricity that's running the computer, which is the pure consciousness that's running the Scott. But I guess I'm asking about the emphasis / importance of it. It is tremendously, tremendously important. If we are sincere, I'm sorry to say it like that because it sounds like I'm casting doubt, which I'm not attempting to do. If we are sincere about the hunger for enlightenment or self-realization or divine or light or reality or truth or God or however you want to say it, if we are sincere about that, which we are, we wouldn't be in this conversation together here. If we're sincere about that, then this that you're asking about, Scott, is very, very, very important. How much emphasis do you give it? Tremendous, maximum emphasis. And this is the principle that we keep reading this over and over and over again out of the mouth of Swami Rama, that says, cultivate constant awareness. How many times have we seen that and talked about? This is what we're talking about. How do I go about cultivating constant awareness? Be aware of what's going on the surface, which you said is posture, breath, thoughts, and feelings. That's the surface. And that just behind the surface, there's some subtle stuff going on, and as best we can be aware of that. And behind all of that, there is consciousness itself. And so you just keep doing that. Give it tremendous emphasis. Theoretically, the goal is constant awareness. Maybe not 24/7, because some of those hours you're sleeping. You may be actually in deep sleep 4 of the 24 hours. So try to do this 20/7. Try to do it 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I'm not saying it's easy, so please don't beat up on yourself because you said I'm not up to 20 hours a day. But this is what we're talking about. I like your choice of words that you asked there, Scott, when you said, I'm asking about the emphasis/importance of it. And I know I'm being repetitive, but I want to say back to you, give it, please, tremendous emphasis/importance. And okay, did you type okay?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, well, there it is. There's the okay. That's probably, let's let Scott have the last word on the okay. And if you do this, Scott, everybody, if you do this, Scott, or should I say, as you do this, I know that in a week or a month or a year, somewhere along the way, you're going to be back telling me how profound this is. You will. You really, really will. That's why Ma Tree was telling you that story earlier. Earlier, she said that I started hitting her with this stuff 9 years ago. And I keep saying the same thing over and over and over again. And that's the intensity, Scott, with which I'm responding to you, that there is tremendous emphasis/importance to this. And you, like Ma Tree, will one of these days be saying, you know what? I remember that day when you obnoxiously had this thing about Om in the middle of all sadhana. And you know, that touched me. And you got me that day. And boy, I've been doing it. And guess what? This is right. Patanjali was right, you will tell me, to put this in the Yoga Sutras. The rishis were right to put this in the Rig Veda and in all these Upanishads. And to put it in the, Vyasa was right to put this in the Bhagavad Gita. Everywhere I look, I see this over and over and over. It's all about the same theme you will be telling me. Okay? So let's pause there, huh?
I also liked Carrie as wowza.
Wowza, yeah, there is.
Okay, is a good last one, but wowza is.
Wowza, boy, that kind of says it all too. So which should I let be the last word, okay or wowza?
Well, wasn't there Om in the beginning? Somewhere?
There was an Om, but we don't need the Om. What do we need Om for? Om is contained in wowza.
Absolutely.
From where did the wowza arise? It arose from the subtle, and beyond the subtle is the individual false identities, and behind that is the Atman. That's where the wowza came from. And that insight is where the okay came from. Raj says, you hit me once with be aware of the reality all the time. It was like a nail in the head, but it stuck. Bang, bang, bang. Take that, Raj. Bang, bang, bang. Taking a nail, driving a nail into his head there. See, says I've got my hammer here and it's a pen, but I'm driving a pen into the head of Raj. And
Ow.
they're stuck. And now it's coming out the other ear. Anyway. So thank you all for playing. And thank you for engaging back because it helps keep this going on. And so puts life in it. And thank you, Ma, for storytelling and all that. So I'm feeling okay about what we've just done here today.
Good.
I felt, somebody in here felt the urge to do this satsang today and attempt to have this conversation. And so in the aftermath of the attempt of the wish to have this conversation and the doing of this conversation, to somebody in here, it feels like we did okay with it. So Dewey, Nellie, Dewey. Okay, Nellie put Dewey. I'll put that momentarily.
I see that also Darren is here. He hadn't said hello.
Darren didn't say hi, Darren.
No, not at all, nothing. And Jivitesh is here also watching. Hi, Jivitesh.
Oh, Jivitesh is here. Hello, Jivitesh.
Everyone else did make a comment.
Well into tomorrow.
Yeah.
Anyway, so thank you all for visiting and playing. Thank you, Ma.
Thank you, Swamiji, and everyone else.
And we should be together about in a few hours with Preacher Leela.
I'm observing the transition of moving away, receding back, into prajna.
You're going to recede back. Hack on, says Johnny.
Hola,
Hola and adios amigos, says Darren. And Jamie is there. Hi, Jamie.
She posted something already, I think.
Yeah, I didn't know Jamie was with us. So anyway, I'm going to push the end broadcast button because I know I'm in trouble here. Roseanne is here and Matri is here. And if I don't push it pretty soon, you're welcome, Matesh. Thank you for playing. If I don't push it pretty soon, they're going to give me a hard time. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, bye-bye all. Thank you again for playing. Remember, and don't, with all this talk about awareness, don't forget the silence after the Om as well, okay? Hi, George. Happy end. There, I pushed one button. There's actually two to push. Okay, here we go. I'll do it for Turiya. 4, 3, 2, 1.